Hello, all. It's been funny teaching argument in a non-person in-person way. And I've been thinking about it a lot because I think a lot. And there's advantages and disadvantages. And one of the big disadvantages that I'm really feeling this semester is I can't see you all. Even if we have our cameras on, I can't see your body language. I can't see any, change in how you're sitting or how you're leaning in or thinking. I can't see that to see if you're really how you're doing with this. I mean, is it all flying over your head? Are you like, can she get on with it? We get it. I can't really do that without being in person with you. So I've struggled with that a lot. But when thinking about this lecture and why I chose to go asynchronous with this one is because I think you'll really benefit from a video that you can go back to and watch again, or you can see what I did again. Because again, argument is building and reconstructing and trying again. It's an iterative process. It's never one and done. Even all of these examples that I'm about to show you have taken a long time to really come to, and I've never done it first shot. I got it. It's that kind of process. Argument is a process, and we do it over and over and again. And it's important that we do it because we do it every day without really thinking about it. We still need to be logical because, again, we can make an argument just by telling someone they're wrong and they're stupid. We're not going to. We'll talk about those fallacies later. We still want to be logical. We want our logos to come through because that builds our ethos and people believe us as this ethical, moral person. But we're moving on from the logic in the old-fashioned sense of major premise, minor premise leading to a conclusion. And we're using more everyday language in the same exact thoughts. So the major premise becomes a word that I think makes a lot more sense. The assumption. What are we assuming by putting this main reason and this claim together? The minor premise becomes the reason, and the conclusion becomes the claim. What are we claiming will happen? That's the claim. And why are we claiming that to happen? Our main reason is why we are claiming that. And if we put those together, are we making a radical assumption? Or is our assumption actually pretty correct? Same exact logical thing, but with different words that probably make a little bit more sense to us. Again, I would also come back to thinking that argument is like a full body thing and it's physical. And I think of a puzzle. There are pieces to a puzzle. Everyone does it differently. Some people take out a puzzle and they sort the pieces first. Others just dive right in. Some people put the border on it first. Some people do colors or certain images together first. It doesn't matter. The only thing that is guaranteed is that all puzzles have pieces and that all the pieces fit together to make a whole. How we do it doesn't matter. These are the pieces of the puzzle that make up an argument. The first one is the recommendation. Again, we're going to be asking someone to do something. A persuasive argument means we want to persuade someone to believe what we believe, take the action we want them to do the thing we're asking, change their mind. We need to have some kind of recommendation. The recommendation is outside of the logic, and that will be important in a minute. And then we get into the logic. What is the claim? What do we want our readers to believe? Again, that is a controversial statement. That is active voice. For our purposes, it is the future tense. That will make our lives a lot easier. And it is also the consequence. What is the consequence of this thing happening? What do we want our readers to believe will happen? And why do we want them to believe that? What reasons are we giving them to accept that claim? That's our main reason. That's where we spend most of the time of our argument. And again, because we want to be logical, we're going to test the main reason and the claim together and test it. What must our readers assume to believe the claim from that main reason? Then that's where we're testing our logic. We're also going to need some backing. We can't just make an assumption without testing out to see, does the community agree with that? We need to have something in our history, some kind of evidence or testimony of how we can expect our reader to accept that assumption? What evidence is there to suggest that my main reason leads to my claim? And then we also have to anticipate that the reader will have some opposition. If we're trying to get someone to take an action or change their mind, they're going to resist that on purpose or, consciously or not. We have to anticipate that and clear the road so that we can, show that we have thought about that. I have an example here from my everyday life. In last March, things were going crazy. Things were just nuts. In my own personal life, I had some issues with my father's health. I was worried about that. I was worried about this new virus that we were hearing about. We were wondering, are we going to need to go home? We were starting to see school shut down. I was worried about my mom's health and, my dad. So many things I worried about, and we were busy. Constantly busy, lots of stuff going on in the spring. I was 10, 12-hour days at work. And I had to ask my boss to rearrange a meeting that I had with my boss. And I did that because that was the only 2 hours I could get a hair appointment. And I had to get my hair done. Real life example of someday you may have to convince your boss that you need to take some personal time during the middle of the workday. I had to make that recommendation to myself and to her that I need to take time to get my hair done. It's a recommendation. I had to prepare an argument, assuming that she might have some pushback there. Why did I want to make that recommendation? Because I really felt that having my hair done would improve my performance. I was not, I was overperforming and things were getting, crazy, and I needed to improve my performance. And I thought having my hair done would improve my performance. What reason did I give to make that claim? Because having my hair done improves my mood. And I started to realize I was just in a bad mood. I felt old and cranky because all my gray hair was showing. And I needed to improve my mood. And if I improved my mood, I would improve my performance at work. That's where I checked my logic. All things that improve my mood will improve my performance. So there, I could go to my boss and say, hey, I need this time off. Studies have shown throughout history that people with better moods work better. And there's been lots of articles about this, of, self-care improves to better performance. I had to argue, in this particular case, I needed to take this time. I could also anticipate that there would be some pushback, that unless this didn't improve my mood because I was really bothered by these other things happening in my life. I had to be prepared for her to say, really? That's what's going to help? I had to anticipate all that happening. Going back to that little clip we heard from Kamala Harris about checking your math. And I just loved that came up at this time, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing it with a tool called a proof line. So we've checked our math, so to speak, with syllogisms, and we're also going to do it with proof lines. Proof lines look like this, and it's based on a specific model of argumentation. Will anyone ever ask to see your proof line? No. I can say that without hesitation. No one in everyday life will know what a proof line is, nor expect to see it. This is a tool for you. And what the proof line is it makes you lay out what your recommendation is. Your recommendation comes from your claim. Again, what is the consequence? Your claim comes from your main reason. You always have to anticipate that there's going to be a rebuttal to either of those things. And you need to check your assumption, check your logic with your main reason and your claim. And further, you should really make sure you have some backup, some proof in the community that the community would agree with that assumption. This is another good place to pause, but this is basically a hint of what goes in that proof line. Should, ought, or must are words that will always be in your recommendation. You should do this. We must do this. We ought to think about this. It is an action word. recommendations of what should we do. That recommendation comes from the controversial, active voice, future tense, consequential, specific claim. The new term plus two. What we've been doing all along. And that claim comes from our main reason. Again, our new term plus our one. So we're breaking our syllogism into this new fancy format. We also have to anticipate a rebuttal to the main reason. We're not introducing new ideas. We are just turning the main reason or the claim on their head. We'll do much more with rebuttals later, but I'll show you some examples here. We'll get into those later. And then we can't go anywhere unless we have checked it. Have we made an assumption that we can agree with? So again, let's check that, in a deconstructed argument. A recommendation that we should commit resources to a company-sponsored daycare. This is the one we did in class really briefly. Why should we commit resources to a company-sponsored daycare? Because we make our claim. An on-site daycare center will increase working parents' productivity. Again, we care about productivity all the time. And why are we making that claim? Because our on-site daycare center will reduce working parents' anxiety. Let's check that assumption. Any benefit that can reduce working parents' anxiety will increase their productivity. Community, can we agree with that assumption? Is that a rational assumption? Well, it is, because we do have studies that show a great connection between anxiety and production. So we can agree with this logic. This logic works. And this logic leads us to make a realistic recommendation. Again, we have some rebuttals in that. Just in case, we have to anticipate that someone can disagree. Sometimes, even when we do that, we realize we don't agree. You don't need to introduce new ideas, just flip the main reason and the claim on their head. So, unless centers increase anxiety because the parents don't know don't believe we're qualified to find good caregivers. Parent choice. Parents want to say in where their kids go, so that's not going to do anything about their anxiety. We can anticipate that. Or we can anticipate that it doesn't increase, or it actually decreases productivity because, maybe the parents will just want to go see their kids all day. And if their kids are downstairs, they're going to leave their office. We're not introducing a concept about, whether it will make people happy or make them upset, or whether they think we owed it to them. Nothing like that. We're just flipping the main reason and the claim on their heads. Let's look at another one. This one should look familiar. And this is my idea of whether, based on the evidence that I've looked at, for my personal cannabis or my personal tax business, I should not take on a cannabis business as a client. Why not? Well, working with the cannabis business will put our firm at risk for lawsuits. And why do I make that claim? Why do I say that will be the consequence for us? Because working with a cannabis business entails significant legal complexities we're not trained for. Let's check our logic with that assumption. All work that entails significant legal complexities we're not trained for will put our firm at risk for lawsuits. Community, can we agree with that? Well, there is some backing that several lawsuits have been brought against firms that have taken on clients that we're not trained to work with. There's some intellectual property missteps. There's, just some legal consequences. I think that logic will play out. Again, we can anticipate a rebuttal unless working with cannabis businesses does not entail complexities because, dang it, we're CPAs and we're smart and we can figure it out. Okay, there's a rebuttal we can anticipate. Rebuttal to the claim, unless working with cannabis and businesses will not put our firm at risk because we'll follow all the laws. Again, we're smart. We know what the laws are. We'll follow them. Anticipating some pushback, incredibly important. Another example from business. This comes up a lot in looking at my own investments, which are admittedly quite small. Um, there was a question when I was setting up my account whether I wanted to exclude any particular stocks or exclude any particular industries. This is a big thing that comes up, and I would recommend that our funds should divest from fossil fuels. There's a recommendation I'm making. In this case, I was making that recommendation to, my tiny broker. The reason I gave for that, I claimed that fossil fuel investments will not reap long-term financial benefits. Sure, Exxon makes a lot of money right now, but that's going to go down in the future. And if I'm in long term, I don't want to be in something that's going to go down. That was the claim that I make. Fossil fuel investments will not be long-term financial benefits. And what reasons did I give for that? Fossil fuel investments support environmentally unsustainable products. Eventually, fossil fuels are going to die. And again, if I'm in the long term in this investment, I want something that will be sustainable. Let's check my logic. Anything that supports environmentally unsustainable products and industries will not reap long-term benefits. Yes, we have some backing that experts say fossil fuels are running out and the industry will be dead or replaced by green energies by 2050. That's probably when I'll retire. I want my investments to be, super good by then. I can, again, anticipate some rebuttals. Unless the fossil fuel investments don't support environmentally unsustainable products because, science is dumb. Or maybe those fossil fuel investments are actually going to pivot so that they are going to be sustainable in the future. We can think of a rebuttal to the claim, unless the fossil fuel industry will reap long-term financial benefits because, people still love their fancy gas-guzzling cars. We can anticipate pushback of either our main reason or our claim. Expect that. Okay. So again, I say, I think of argument all the time. Taking the dogs out for a walk, I look around, I see signs, I see arguments. Because again, they're persuading, they're making some kind of recommendation to me. Can I deconstruct it and see what kind of argument they are making? So this was one by a school that we walked by. And you can see the sign, it says, idle-free zone. Young lungs at work. Turn off engine when waiting more than 30 seconds. So I couldn't see this in action because the school's not in session right now. But I started to think about how this would affect schools. And I thought about schools in my own area. And I've actually never seen a sign like this. But this is out in Walnut Creek and, very neighborhoody school. And I thought, why don't we have those signs in Oakland, where I live? Don't we care about our children? So I started to make up an argument, using our good old-fashioned proof line to show my math. And I come up with the recommendation that, for the cost of a sign, I think we should require all schools in our district to adopt these no idle zones, that we shouldn't have cars idling, throwing out pollutants right in front of the school. Why? What consequence will it have? Well, reducing pollution around children will help them learn and develop better. Like that sign was talking about, young lungs at work. What is the reason I make to make that claim? Well, reducing pollution around children keeps their bodies healthy. Let's check that with our assumption. Anything that keeps children's bodies healthy will help them learn and develop better. Community, can we agree with that? Well, we do have studies showing that the mind-body connection is really, really strong. If we aren't healthy, we don't think well. So let's keep ourselves healthy so that we can think well. We can anticipate some people not agreeing with my main reason or not agreeing with my claim, unless reducing pollution doesn't help them learn better because they just really need to adjust to reality. No one's going to stop idling outside of their home, so whatever. We can anticipate some pushback there. We'll do rebuttals later. Just be prepared for it. Unless reducing pollution doesn't keep their bodies healthy because really they've got other issues. They don't eat well or exercise well. Are we going to have to fix that too? Well, Yes, but that's for another class. Again, we've had the basic recommendation and we've deconstructed it to see why do I make that recommendation. Here's another sign as I was walking the dogs. So this is a park in Walnut Creek. And what caught my eye about it is they have so many rules. I don't think I've ever seen a park in my neighborhood that has so many rules. I live near Lake Merritt, which became famous for Barbecue Becky. And what part of the issue there was there's no posted rule there at Lake Merritt that says they can't do what those people she was complaining about were doing. So yeah, it's like, there's no rule. Well, in Walnut Creek, there's a rule for that. And it really started making me think of what brought up this rule. So I thought about one. One of them was, no amplified music. Okay, that seems like a pretty legitimate one. And maybe I would make that recommendation for the parks in my neighborhood, because it already is very loud. We should restrict amplified music in this park. Why am I making that recommendation? Because I'm claiming amplified music will reduce the chances for everyone to enjoy the park. What reason do I give to make that claim? Amplified music creates excessive noise and disruption. Let's check our logic. All things that create excessive noise and disruption will reduce the chances for everyone to enjoy the park. Well, we do have some recent news stories that show there's a lot of interpersonal violence that comes from frustration over you're not being considerate, you're not thinking about me, you're selfish. Maybe we can combat some of that if we make this pretty small rule that you can't have amplified music. I can anticipate some rebuttal to this. I really can, especially with this one. Unless amplified music does not create excessive noise or disruption because they're normal park activities. People have parties at parks. Parties have music. Get over it. We can anticipate that. We can also maybe anticipate the claim that unless amplified music will not reduce the chances for everyone to enjoy the park because everyone likes the same music. Well, in looking at that rebuttal, that one doesn't sing quite as much because we all know we have different music tastes and sometimes we don't want to hear that. In this case, the stronger rebuttal is definitely, well, it's a park. What do you expect? Anticipate this. And this one actually got me thinking rather more negatively. And this one bothered me a little bit, that any organized activities on sports fields require a permit from the city of Walnut Creek. Okay, and it gives all the codes and says who is where and what it is. Well, I got some issues with that. I mean, I can appreciate why you don't want a free-for-all, but maybe we want to reconsider that. And here's something I came up with. If I wanted to go to City Hall of Walnut Creek to protest, I would recommend to them that they re-examine this policy. Why do I think they should re-examine this policy? Well, I think permit policies for park usage will prevent equal access to public spaces. That's a big issue. I mean, we all are trying to get everyone wants limited resources. How do we apply it? But we want it to be equal and equitable. My main reason for making that claim that it will prevent this equal access, permit policies for park usage create extra barriers for small informal groups. So let's check that assumption. All things that create extra barriers for small informal groups will prevent equal access to public spaces. Evidence shows that some communities are more, and I put this in quotation marks because I hate the word literate for all of its negative connotations, but some communities are more literate in the technologies and processes, and some of them have more time to navigate the required civic bureaucracies. If we go back and look at that sign, and we can see every single thing, every group that is using that space is one single soccer club. And it's probably not a public soccer club. It's probably you have to pay league fees to join the soccer club. How can my little gym ever get access to this park if this one private soccer club, which probably has a secretary to be able to do all this work, gets all the time? It's not equitable. Again, anticipate the rebuttal. Unless permit policies do not create extra barriers because, well, they're easy to get. Well, prove to me that they're easy to get. Or we can rebuttal the claim. Unless permit policies will not prevent equal access because, well, everyone can get one anyway. Again, in our argument, we would want to prove that that's not true, that not everyone can get this, that there are some barriers there. So you want to think about argument happening every day, because it is happening every day. And we have the ability to change policies or to change minds or to influence people to take certain actions. And we do that by looking around us and really thinking about what claim do we make for our recommendation. We tell people what to do all the time. Every day we're telling someone what to do. We have absolutely no problem coming up with recommendations. What we really need to focus on is what claim do we have to make that recommendation, and what reasons do we have to believe that claim. That's really what we're going to be focusing on. The main reason that leads to a claim that allows us to make the recommendation that we then want to make. The recommendation is a separate thing, and it's the choice we've made after we believe our argument.